Hey guys, welcome back to another Shadowverse video. And so today I'm going to be doing a minor deck update, and I'm going to go a little bit more into depth on how to play the deck and my particular card choices. Since the last video I kind of just talked more about the game in general and then just kind of quickly went through the deck. In this particular video I'm going to go into a little bit more depth, like I said, just explain the card choices and how to basically pilot the deck and what you're looking to kind of sort of do with this particular style of deck. So obviously I have Dragoncraft over here. I got my leader card. You do need one of these to play, but I think for the most part no one really cares when we go out and play. You just tell someone you're playing Dragoncraft, and then yeah, you don't really have to show them that, but at least from my experience. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and go into the cards. Well, the card choices, the ratios, and then maybe talk about some of the evil cards at the same time, or at least how to effectively play each of the cards. And hopefully, this video will kind of be a nice bridge to new players into sort of more advanced tactics and strategies. And yeah, I myself am still learning the game, so um, there's some things I might get wrong, but from the general gist of just playing the game for the last 2 weeks or so, I have at least a fairly decent idea on where at least I want to take this particular deck. All right, so I'm gonna go through um, the I guess by play point cost. So that's kind of how my deck is sort of ordered right now. All right, let's go through the first card, Bell Ringer. So as you know, this is sort of a late game deck. Um, so with Bellringer, you want to get her out early, uh, and you essentially just play one evil of her. I'll kind of talk about this is the extra deck here, but yeah, I'll talk about the cards there too. So Bellringer, she helps you live and stems the aggro. So stems the bleeding in case you're getting rushed by quick blades and things like that. However, when you do play her, you don't want to engage her immediately. So, because I see a lot of people do that, like they'll play Bellwinger and then immediately engage the Bellwinger. You don't want to do that. The reason why is you want to wait until your opponent plays something that so you can evil the Bellwinger and shoot it for free. Because if you play Bellwinger and you tap and you engage it, and they just run it over, it will die. It will draw you a card, but it won't really you won't be able to take advantage of the evil. The evil is what makes Bellringer so good. Is that let's say you go first, you play Bellringer, and you don't do anything, right? You don't engage her. Your opponent plays a quick blade. They attack you. You take 1 damage, but the turn after that, if you don't have any other turn play, you can go ahead and evil her, and kill the quick blade. So you're basically trading up in cards. So and then after that, you can obviously just engage the Bellringer if you wanted to. But I'll engage them when I feel like I need to protect my creatures more than myself. Sometimes I have a monster or a follower that that I want to protect, like say Forte for example. If I'm able to ramp up, so I go turn 1, Bellringer, turn 2, Dragon Oracle. My opponent doesn't really do anything. Turn 3, I'll play, or turn 3, but I have 4 play points. I'll slap down a Forte, swinging for 5, and then engage the Bellringers to make sure that Bellringer can essentially protect the Forte from any you quick attacks from a quick blade or rush, for example. So that's one way you can kind of use the Bellringers, either to protect your followers that are fairly weak in terms of defense, or obviously yourself, or namely to trade up in card advantage by just being able to evolve her. So my recommendation is, depending on what match you're playing, if you're playing against another dragon, I guess it doesn't really matter too much. But playing against other aggro decks, you may not want to evolve, sorry, not evolve her, but you may not want to engage her immediately the moment you drop her on the board. So just wait a turn, wait a turn or two, see what your opponent does, then see if you can trade up with the Bellringer, then engage her to protect yourself. But yeah, don't engage her immediately. Is what you don't is what you want to do. All right. Next off, you got your best removal here, or sorry, cheapest removal is the Brazen Breath. Um, It's essentially an angel snipe, but clan attached to your only dragon. So what I think it's one of the best ones because you just by in the early game it does 2 damage, in the late game it does 4 damage. So it scales up as you're playing the game, which I really like. There's certain other cards that require like weird conditions to use, but I think Blazing Breath is one of the easiest one, and the fact that it scales up as you play the game is really great. So yeah, I definitely think you play 3 of these. Moving on, you know, into like set 3 and 4 and beyond. I think Blazing Breath is just kind of like a staple from there until we get something better. But yeah, right now pretty good. Um, then you have your 3 Dragon Oracle. This is probably gonna be the staple of the deck from forever. Essentially, it allows you to ramp, and then later when you don't need to ramp, you just cast it to pay 2 to just draw a card. Sometimes I'll pitch it with Shenlong when I feel like all the cards in my hand are great and it's late game and I don't want to spend 2 mana to essentially draw a card. I'll just pitch it to Shenlong and then draw, use it as fodder basically. But yeah, Dragon Oracle, you sort of want to mulligan until you see one. Most of the time you don't, but if you see one in hand, that's usually a hand that you can sort of keep. So that's why Dragon Oracle is so good. Okay, so next off here we have the 3 Shifting Mages. So Shifting Mages kind of like similar to Blazing Breath. It scales up with the game, so later in the game it becomes a 5/5, and it's also really really good removal, especially for creatures that your opponent or followers that your opponent hasn't really used to attack with or hasn't engaged. So along with that, right now I have 2 Shifting Mages, the evil. So what's good about him is like you can always use him as early game removal. You can play him and then evolve him for 1. Once he becomes evolved, he has Bane and Assail, which allows you to essentially attack anything on the board that you want. Only issue is like if they have Ward, which gets a little annoying because the Ward will force you to attack that creature if it's engaged. But if they don't have Ward, they're just playing things on curve and they maybe saving that particular follower to evolve next turn, you can get rid of that follower before it gets a chance to evolve. So yeah, just really good early game removal for 3 mana. Essentially, you just play him, spend a mana, evolve him, and basically remove anything you want on the board. Or late game, you drop him after turn 7, or after when you have overflow going and he becomes a 5/5. So 2 mana for 5/5 is pretty good. So yeah, so early game removal when you want to evolve him. Late game, just drop him and he becomes really a big body for just 2 play points essentially. Next off, my personal favorite card, one of my cards that I really like, is Serpent's Wrath. I know some builds don't play this card at all, but I've been liking it, mainly because it just kind of kills things, especially kills other storm cards, because you won't always have a ward, and Shenlong gets removed really easily. So at least in my play testing and playing, the Shenlong doesn't guarantee that you're gonna be able to block things, and so like they'll remove it and they'll storm in, and so you want to have something to be able to deal with creatures that storm in the later part of the game. And for the most part, most followers have less than 5 defense, so this thing almost guarantees a kill on almost everything. That's like 5 play points or lower. So you're always trading up in tempo when you're playing Serpent's Wrath. Later in the game, it becomes really good too because you just start just being able to kill things and draw cards. Really, really good. If you didn't want to play it at 3 copies, I recommend at least 2. But for me, so far, I've been liking 3. Seeing it early, you can trade. The only card I found it bad against is sometimes Haven, where they have Skull Face. So he's 6/6, so that's a little rough because this only deals 5. So the threshold damage for this deck is 5 damage on followers. So you have Serpent's Wrath, you have Blazing Breath, which is only 4 damage. You have Conflagration, and you have Fafnir, which all deal a maximum of 5 damage the turn they are played. Um, you obviously have Dragon Warrior, which deals 3, but any follower that has more than um, 5 defense point, this deck has a slight hard time dealing with, which I'll talk about in a second with some cards I'm trying out to kind of sort of make up for that particular weakness. If not, you can always Serpent's Wrath and then cast like Fafnir on the turn after, which deals 10 damage as total. It seems kind of wasteful, but in the later game, that's what I'll do. Is I'll Serpent's Wrath, something that's really strong. Following turn after that, I'll either Conflagration or Fafnir, which sort of helps you clear the board in that sense. So yeah, um, Resurface Rep, and it's really good early game too. Just early game removal is really great. It's Tsubaki killer, because Tsubaki will is like the main weakness of the deck is like other um, storm followers that attack and are able to connect for like 5 damage or more. You want to be able to kill them at basically quick speed. So I think that's pretty important there. All right. So our next card, the next 3 of is the Dragon Warrior, um, and then you also have the 2 evil form here. Dragon Warrior is just a good turn 2-for-1 card usually, and if you're able to Dragon Oracle, you can play him on turn 3, which is really nice, and then also evil him for free essentially because you'll have 4 mana. If not, play him on turn 3 and you spend an evil point to evil him will also help you deal with the early aggro. But yeah, he gets buffer and he deals 3 damage, so pretty good. Definitely think he's gonna stay in the deck for quite a while, honestly, because it's such a good like early card to remove your opponent's aggro cards and just training up. And then next off you have Elia. She's okay. Like most of the time, she's kind of too slow. I want to say. When you draw her late game, she's just bad. But late game she's a 3/2 body, so you're just looking to deal damage with her. Late game, I usually just ditch her with Shenlong. If I have copies of her in the hand. Early game, she's decent. Early game, you can kind of kill things and ramp yourself. Too bad she doesn't have evil form. I think if she had an evil form, she'd be a little bit better. So you can like evil her, trade into something, and then ramp yourself. But I guess that'd be a little too powerful. Um, but I still think right now, since we're playing just pure ramp dragon, you do need 3 of her. Later, as the game gets more cards, you'll probably end up just cutting her. But yeah, that's for now. Like I think you do need to play 3 of her, just to get yourself to ramp a little bit quicker. And then the 2 Zenitra here, you don't really need to play her, but I do like her. I mean, her stats are really good. So like if you have nothing else to do, you can play her on turn 3 and still get a dragon. I don't recommend that though, because if she dies, then you don't really want to cast the dragon for 4 mana. 'Cause it's pretty expensive, and the dragon I'm talking about is the token 4/5 um, 4 mana or 4 play points for 5/5 body. You want to play her at least on turn 5, so she's kind of a 5 drop, even though she's essentially says a 3 here. So on 5 drop, you play her, tap her, spend 2 mana, and then just ram the dragon to whatever you need. So she acts as kind of a removal card for 5 mana, or 5 play points, I should say. On turn 7, she's just getting you bigger bodies on the board. So turn 7, when you have overflow, you play her. Essentially, just costs 3 for basically a 8/7 body, I guess, with rush, because you're a dragon. So yeah, I think 2 of her is good. I don't think you really need more than 2. Because like I said, early game she's not that great. Late game she's pretty good. Mid game she's okay. Yeah, access removal gets a little expensive though. And then Fortes, and then essentially 2 evils of the Fortes here. Oh, sorry. Where's the other Forte? So she's essentially kind of like your end game. Mid range, like I never really wanted. You never really want to trade with her into anything else. Um, but you do want to like just pressure your opponent's face because you're trying to get them into like a few ranges here. You're trying to get them to either like 10 health or 12. So that's typically it. So on turn 10, if you have two of her, you can play one, run it into face, play the second one, evo it, and that's like 12 damage. So that's the combo. Is by the time you get to turn 10 play points, you're able to play double forte and deal 12 damage. Um, if not, you can just swing in, protect her with Bell Ringer, and just deal damage and force your opponent kind of to deal with her. Now, obviously, she's kind of weak to uh, removal, like Angel Snipe, other one damage quick play uh, cards. So you want to do it when your opponent maybe doesn't have any open play points, or maybe you playing against you're playing against Sword, and you know they can't really interact with her at quick speed. Obviously, if you play her and they attack, they can just like quick blade her for and trade up on like a quick blade for her, which is the terrible trade for you. But in general, like she is I think a must of or must play, and so and two copies of her. Most of the time, I only evo it once, her once, but it's nice to have a second copy in case you do need it. But yeah, she's just kind of your end game, and she as long as you're pressuring your opponent, you can also eventually close out the game with Storm Dragon, the Genesis Dragon. Um, Otherwise, late game, just try to deal the final 7 or the final 12, I guess. So those are a couple of numbers that you want to look for while playing dragons. Just trying to deal some damage while curving your opponent's aggro, and then set up for the combo there. Next off, two Executioner or Execution. At first, I wasn't really a fan of the card, but after playtesting after a while, I ended up liking it for two reasons. Because I used to play Erd in place of the Executioner, but the problem with Erd is she only removes follower, and she only removes it during your turn, which I guess I don't particularly care because during my turn, if I play Conflagration or Fafnir, that's usually like a way to remove the follower. The only thing Erd has over Execution is that I guess she gives you a body, and she also can if you evolve her, she also banishes, which will not allow some last words to trigger. But that's not too important. There's not too many last word cards that you really care for um, that trigger that is um, super duper important. So, and then also the problem what I found with Erd is sometimes there's a turn where I want to evolve like Shenlong, but I also have to choose between Shenlong or Erd, or maybe I have to choose between evolving Forte or Erd, or I had to evolve maybe a Shapeshifter Mage or Erd. So that's another issue I found with playing too many evil cards that require evolution with Erd. Cause for Erd to be an effective removal, you do want to evolve her, and so I found that she was kind of conflicting with some of that, and I already had enough follower removal, so I wanted something else that can remove amulets, because this deck has no way of removing amulets or dealing with amulets. So Executioner's or Execution's nice for dealing with the Havencraft amulet that makes a bunch of tigers. So that's one way to deal with it. Also deals with D-Shifter, because D-Shifter, if they go and they start dropping the big 7/7 boys, there's nothing in this deck at quick speed that's able to deal with that. So Executioner is nice in that sense. So if they're trying to go for the OTK, you can Executioner one of the big boys, and so that when they D-shift during their D-shift turns, you're able to survive that, or just basically mess up their whole entire gameplay. So the Executioner is nice for that particular sense. It's able to deal with things that are greater than toughness 5 or health 5. It's able to deal with amulets, at least until we get Bahamut. Once we get Bahamut, then we have easy time to deal with amulets, because his evil form will just blow up all amulets. But it's also dealing with big creatures that have storm, or is part of their combo piece, like the D shifter. So yeah, executioner or execution. I keep saying executioner, but execution I think is a card worth trying out. At least maybe one copy if you're not playing two. I think three might be too much. Three might clog your hand. And I mean it's 4 play points, so it is in the range of more expensive removal. But I think it's sort of necessary, at least right now, until we get better options. In the future, you might just want to cut this to one, or maybe not play it at all. But for now, I think two is pretty good to kind of deal with the variety of things you'll be facing in the meta. Um, and then next off, we have configuration. Some builds don't play this, but I really like it. Deals with like tigers, especially playing against Havencraft, and they have a bunch of tigers. It deals with their entire tiger board. Deals with about majority of the um, Swordcraft followers. Even if they have the banner on it, you can just wipe it. Um, deals with yeah, deals with it doesn't really deal much. Doesn't really do much against um, the D shift decks because they don't really play that many creatures. So in that sense, it's kind of useless against them. And then it deals with a lot of the vampire stuff, a lot of the bats. Deals with force if they're playing a lot of elves. So it kind of just does everything that you want it to do, and it's sort of at rate. It's obviously a worse decree board wipe, but the good thing is some of your creatures are able to survive it. Some of your followers, not too many though. I think most will still get blown up by it. Um, the only thing that will survive your own conflagration is it evolves Shenlong, or once you hit your 7 to like 8 play points, then those followers will survive. But for the most part, most followers will die to conflagration. Obviously, it has sort of a tough time dealing with Skullface, since he is 6 toughness. But yeah, other than that, it's I think this card is really good, especially if you're hoping to get the late game. I have casted all three of these during a game against like Swordcraft, and so you really want to see this. You really want to open it. This is gonna help you survive until you can stabilize, and then it also helps you clear the board. Clears if your opponent's got like Ohime and a bunch of bodyguards, or has a bunch of things with ward. It helps you clear the way so that you can start storming in Forte, and you start storming in your Genesis Dragon just to finish off your opponent. So that's the other thing I really like about conflagration is not only does it help you stabilize, it also helps you clear the basically pave the way so that your bigger followers can connect to your opponent and finish them off essentially. Especially if they're just trying to dirtle behind a bunch of wards. That's kind of a way to deal with that. Then obviously you have the next best card, or essentially the best card in the deck, in a lot of people's opinion. It's overly stat. It replaces itself. Draws 2, discard 1, basically replaces itself. And its evil form, right here, heals you for 5. And its evil form also increases its toughness and attack by 1, which is really good. So overall, just there's no cons of playing Shenlong. I mean, it's also our only way of drawing cards in the deck. You don't really have that many draw power in the deck. I think some people are playing the blood, the amulet, where you deal yourself 3, draw 3 cards. You could play that, but I don't really want to deal myself 3 damage because that against a lot of decks seems to be very detrimental. I want to keep my health as high as possible against even decks like Magecraft. You want to keep your health as high as possible, so on their turn they're de-shifting you. If you're over like 21 health, you're generally fine. Or if you're over like 30 health, you're good because they require like 2 D-shifts to kill you rather than just like the one. So yeah, just keeping your health high. He helps to keep the aggro low. He's sort of weak to trading with tigers. Like if you engage him and your opponent has a bunch of tigers, they'll overrun Shenlong. Or maybe your opponent has the assassin from Swordcraft. They'll engage him, or if he's already engaged, they'll kill him off for free. So just kind of be careful with that. But yeah, overall, at least until he gets limited, he's definitely like a 3 of in the deck, and at least 1 or 2 copies of his evil form. yeah, it's one of our only other cards with Ward. I think our only other card with Ward is Lucifer and Bellringer. So most of our deck is just removal, and then this card is just gonna help us um, sort of save ourselves. So I like what I like doing is on like if I have 10 play points, I'll clear the board with Conflagration and slap down the Shenlong, draw cards, and then just ward it up and pray they don't kill you that turn, or pray that they can't get rid of Shenlong. And then that way you can either evolve him, heal up, and then swing in for 6, and then maybe have a Genesis Dragon or a Forte to back you up and basically trying to finish him off that way. So yeah. And then for our payoffs for the deck, essentially we have 2 Lucifer. I think at least 1 copy is warranted in the deck. 2, I like playing 2, just like a little bit of redundancy. The thing with the game, the way it's currently set up with the mulligan rule, um, you draw 4, you mulligan, you shove all 4 cards to the bottom of the deck. And the thing with Dragon is it has no way to tutor anything. You have no way of searching for anything. Your only real draw power is the Shenlong, maybe the Dragon's Oracle. But yeah, outside of that, you have zero draw cards, and maybe obviously Bellringer. So if you put something on the bottom of your deck, you're probably never gonna see it again for the rest of the game. So at least in my opinion, that's why like if I draw 4 cards and I see Lucifer and some other cards I can't use, I don't mind mulliganing. So that way I know I have another good chance of drawing another Lucifer to play during the game. Um, Obviously, to either stabilize or if you're going to be aggro, evil him and then deal 4 damage to your opponent. So that's why I don't play a single any one copy or any one ofs in the deck, because if I see it in my opening hand and I mulligan, then for the rest of the game I'm for sure not going to see it. And then also you have the one Lucifer evil, but yeah, that's why I'm also playing the 2 Genesis Dragon and the 2 Fafnir. Fafnir has been pretty good. I really like Fafnir. Just clears away, especially turn 8, or with 8 evil points, you cleared away with Fafnir. And then your opponent has to try to deal with the 7/8 body, and if they don't, you drop Genesis Dragon on 9 play points, so that's like 17 damage right there. Or you drop double Forte plus Fafnir, that's also another 17 damage. So you have a few ways of dealing, nearly one-shotting your opponent with Dragon if you are able to stabilize and you're able to keep their board clear and you're able to reach 9 to 10 play points. So you have a ton of ways of almost one-shotting them. Um, same idea. That's why I'm playing the 2 Genesis Dragons. Sometimes I discard a copy off with Shenlong, or if I mulligan, I shove one to the bottom of the deck, and hopefully draw another one and be able to finish it. Um, maybe in the future you don't play him at all, or you just play 1 copy. For now, I think 2 is good. I've been liking 2 copies. Been pretty good there. And yeah, Fafnir, I can even argue that you might want to bump him to 3, because sometimes just dropping him and dealing 5 damage to all your opponent's followers is really nice. And then you have a big body. He is a little weak because during the late game, since he doesn't have taunt or ward. Sorry, I should say ward. Since he doesn't have ward, you're at risk of dying sometimes by the time you get around to 8 play points or 9 play points. If you're really low on health on your leader, yeah, you can be really careful about dropping him, because if you drop him, you clear the board and you have no other backup plays. You don't have another Bellringer to back him up or something, and they maybe you're playing against the mirror match. They storm you with Genesis Dragon, or storm you with Fortes, or they storm you with Tsubaki. Then you're gonna be in a world of hurt. But other than that, for the most part, I think Fafnir has been pretty good, especially against Haven. If they're playing the Tigers, you can clear a bunch of Tigers and then force Haven to kind of deal with him. If not, then you're able to one shot them. But yeah, so hopefully that sort of explains the deck. Went through most of the cards, most of the builds here, and my card choices. And yeah, overall I've been really enjoying the deck. It's definitely a top tier deck for sure. I think my win rate on this deck is pretty high. Um, I went to a regional qualifier last weekend. It was single elim. Unfortunately, I got elim during the first round. Just entirely sort of bad luck in some sense. I was my opponent had literally nothing left, but he just drew a card that was able to tutor for Sabaki, and I just didn't have a ward or anything way to deal with Sabaki, and so that's how he was able to kill me. But other than that, he was if I survived that one turn, I was gonna one shot him the turn after. But we basically just I dealt with every single storm follower, everything he had. The one card that gave me the most biggest issue was that he was playing I think the 7 drop ward, last ward makes 2 more ward dudes. That sword card, I forgot what the card was, but that's the only card that was giving me trouble, and I think might have misplayed it. He, I was able to return it with Erd, but I should have banished it with the Erd by evolving it. But I decided to go Erd, bounce it back, Shenlong, Evil Shenlong, heal the 5, which is still good. But eventually, like the game dragged out for so long that he dropped it. Like, he played it from his EX zone, and then he also played another one later down the line, which I just had. I took like another turn to kill both of them, kill all the small ward followers, but unfortunately he just drew the card that got Sabaki and finished me off. Because I think he had like 1 card left in hand, 1 or 2 cards left in hand. I had like 5 or 6 cards, so I was card economy. I was doing really well. Just I was really low um, on health, and unfortunately, the turn I did manage to stabilize and clear his board, he just got the Sabaki to kill me. So a little unfortunate there. My friend ended up getting, I think, second place or third place or something like that, and my other friend, they ended up playing against each other. So if that didn't happen, I think they would have gotten like easily second and third place. But yeah, for me, yeah, I just lost that early in the day, unfortunately. This weekend, I'm probably gonna go out and play a regular locals and see how I do. I've been mostly playing test playing against my friends. They play D Shifter. They play Haven Tigers. They play Swordcraft aggro, Swordcraft mid range, and they play Blood, or I guess Abysscraft control and Abysscraft aggro. So I've had the fair amount of like test playing against all of those decks. I haven't really played against too much Forestcraft, and I haven't really played against too many mirror matches either. But for the most part, like the deck's been doing pretty well against aggro decks, able to really easily stabilize. Even mid-range decks, we have not a bad time against them. Against the mirror match, I will have to see. But I think against the mirror match, I have enough removal and like interaction at quick speed to be able to deal with most things. And yeah, overall, enjoy the deck. Been pretty fun. Over the cost of the deck overall, because I did pimp out a couple of cards here and there. I think overall the deck costs around like $200 to $250, which is not cheap, and which is, I wouldn't say, the most expensive deck either. There's obviously way more expensive things, but yeah, for the cost, I think it's not bad. And obviously there's decks that are like, I think Sword, you can spend like $80 to $100 and have a really top tier deck there. Dragoncraft, I went with because I'm familiar with it, playing from the digital game, and me and my friends, we bought the 6 starter decks, and then we all just kind of picked one, and I just ended up grabbing the dragon one, so ended up making dragon, and yeah, here we are. Anyways, guys, hopefully this kind of explains the deck a little bit better. Gives you guys more of a little bit more in depth on how to sort of pilot the deck and the card choices and things like that. And hopefully you guys learned something from my experience. Anyways, that's it, and I'll see you guys next time.